In this lesson, I'll share 5 advanced techniques found in Ragtime Blues Guitar that will help you take your playing to the next level. Some of these techniques took me forever to get down, but along with each example that we're going to cover, I'll share my best tip to help you nail this a lot quicker than I did. So grab your guitar and let's get started. Syncopation is a rhythmic technique where accents fall on uncommon beats or even offbeat. In ragtime, there's quite a bit of syncopation, and it really is the driving force that helps create that bouncing, swinging feel of this style. Now, I came to ragtime blues from rock music, so this was a bit tricky for me. I didn't swing that much at all in my playing, that's for sure. We went deep into this technique in Tuesday Blues number 405, but it's so important we're going to revisit it here for our first example. My best tip for getting the hang of syncopated rhythms is to play really slowly and make a conscious effort to push the offbeat notes, the ones in between the 1, 2, 3, 4 count. Push those offbeat notes as close as possible to the main beats. And then play the same part as evenly as possible. Let's start by pushing the notes toward the main beats. Now let's play the same part, but nice and evenly spaced. This helps you really feel the difference between the two rhythms. So once you have a sense of it, switch back to the syncopated version and try to speed it up while maintaining that push, that forward lean toward the main beats. But there's something else that we can do in a part like this to really sell the swing, which brings me to the next technique. Staccato is when notes are played short and choppy. They're disjointed from the next note, which means that we need to stop the strings from ringing. We need the ability to quickly mute and unmute the strings as we play a ragtime part. Here, we'll play the part from the first example, but this time I'm really going to dial up the muting and that short, punchy staccato sound, particularly on beats 2 and 4. Let's take a closer look at what's going on. In this example, beats 2 and 4 are short and really sharply played, and we get that by muting just after we play the beat. Now, what's happening here is mostly, actually in this case, entirely due to fret hand muting, something that we don't think a lot about. But check this out. I'm doing 2 things right after beat 2 and then again after beat 4. 2 things are happening on the fretboard. One, I am releasing the note, which just means picking up pressure, but still maintaining contact with the strings. You can still hold your chord shape here, and when you lift up, the notes that you were fretting stop ringing. But there's a note, and when we play the full chord, 2 notes that will ring because they're played with open strings. So this technique won't mute them. What we can do to do that is at the same time lay back down on the strings, right? I just kind of collapse my finger. In particular, my ring finger here is muting everything that was ringing. So it's a twofold technique, and it really works great in ragtime parts. You can practice this by a simple alternation of long and staccato notes on a 4 count with a metronome. Let's try to do it on 2 and 4 along with a click. After you get the hang of this, then let's bring on the full example with the notes in between. We'll still play those syncopated, but now we're going to add an additional beat that we're going to play staccato, beat 3. Bringing syncopation and muting techniques into our playing really help you get that bounce. And no one does it quite like Blind Blake, and we have Blake to thank for our next technique. Similar to that falling into the note feel of syncopation, we can do that in our bass lines to great effect. And no one did this quite like Blind Blake, and it can be very tricky to get down. And I've got a practice tip that will help you with that, but before we get there, we got to hear the example. spent years training my thumb to pick solidly on the beat. The 1, 2, 3, 4, steady as it goes. Boom Chick, Mississippi John Hurt, Delta Blues, playing on the beat was key. And then there's Blind Blake, who would sneak in a bass note just before the downbeat. There's a doubling up feeling that happens, and it feels like you're rolling from one note right into the next. It's very rhythmic, it packs a punch, but it can be tricky to play well. My best tip for this is twofold. Play a 5-4 alternating bass line and count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're only playing on the beats. And here's the important part. When you're counting, say the and of 4, even though you don't play it, and say it much louder than the rest of the count, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. There it is, syncopate a little bit, and 1, 2, 3, 4. This will train your brain to know where the note is rhythmically, and don't forget to swing it. And then in one continuous motion, start on the 6th string and roll through the 6th and 5th strings so that you land on the 5th string on the downbeat, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how on the fretboard, since I'm fretting the C chord this way, I'll need to move my ring finger quickly to catch the G on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. If this is difficult, then consider fretting your C chord this way that already has the G in the bass. This next technique is just plain fun. I love these little descending bass runs that connect chords, and no one does it quite like Blind Boy Fuller. Let's hear it in action. This can be really tricky because of the timing. Have you noticed that so much of this style is built on rhythm? It's that ragged rhythm that gives this style its name, ragtime. So for this technique though, we've got to make sure and hit the accents at the right time. That helps this really come together. And when I'm struggling with a lick like this, I'll slow things down and exaggerate the accent so I know exactly where it is, where it should be. And then I'll build up the tempo and cool it on the accent to just kind of settle into the part. Give that a try as you work on this Fuller style lick. When I was learning fingerstyle blues, I worked hard on my picking technique, and that was a good thing, but I set rules for myself to pick the bass string strictly with my thumb, and then the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings with my index, middle, and ring fingers, respectively. And that served me well, and I do rely on that picking style or framework heavily, and I don't really think I could tackle something like Blind Blake without it. But let me tell you, I am constantly breaking free of my self-imposed rules when it comes to playing ragtime blues. Here's an example from one of the MyBGI courses called Kitchen Sink Rag. In the example, I'll use 2 fingers to alternate rapidly on a single string. Let's check it out. Coming to acoustic blues through rock and metal makes me think of this as alternate picking with a flat pick, a strict down, up picking pattern. And in this case, I like to think of my thumb as the downstroke and my index finger as the upstroke. For me, I had to break through this idea that I could only pick with my dedicated finger picking plan. I really couldn't play a part like this with just the ring finger plucking this one note. Even if I could get it to speed, it didn't quite sound right. I needed some help from another finger, and ultimately what was most comfortable for me gave me better results, and that was getting my thumb involved. So let's get a close-up picking of this line played slowly. For an extra deep dive into ragtime blues guitar, join MyBGI's membership at the link right over here, and you'll get access to a perfect trio of ragtime picking studies. There's Keep On Picking in the style of Truckin' My Blues Away, East Coast Blues in the style of Blind Blake's West Coast Blues, and of course Kitchen Sink Rag that you just heard. Sign up and jump into one of these 3 courses or one of the other 60 courses in the MyBGI library. I'll see you there. Until then, practice smart and play on.